fuck this, bro. We're actually going to get into the topic of interim titles in the UFC. I hate them. They are tarded.
Uh-oh, retard alert!
And judging on more recent events are obviously completely pointless at this stage. Sorry for showing my hand so early on this one, but you know. So outside of obviously seemingly to make a fucking fight on a light card have more weight when it's convenient, I'm kind of struggling a little bit here, to be honest. But what do you think? Do you think the UFC should scrap them? And if so, why, and what else could they do in its place?
Well, I don't know. I struggle with this one in the sense of I feel like occasionally you need them, but then again, do you really need them?
But now you have my attention.
So, example, Tom Aspinall, the current interim champion of the heavyweight division.
Is he though?
If they would have said that he, with that win over Sergey Pavlovich, was the number one contender, then, which is what the interim champion kind of really is, would we have been all that upset? Would we be any more upset than we are right now? Because I feel like we're upset right now because we feel like the interim champion should be fighting the champion, and that's not happening. If he weren't the interim champion, we would still be feeling like he's the number one contender and he should be fighting the champion, which is not happening. So I don't know if it would make a difference. Like, I understand the point of it when the champion is injured.
Is he though?
Which in that case, he was injured during that time period. He's not injured anymore. But in certain cases, like when Renan Barão was champion and or when he was about to be fighting for the championship and there were things going on in that division and he fought for an interim belt, it made sense. But like there should not be a person that holds an interim belt for longer than 9 months to a year. Like after that point, there either needs to be a fight booked or the champion drops the belt and that person becomes the champion. Like it's got to be one or the other. You can't have a belt that long, and we're getting close to it because that fight was in November. Now he's about to defend his interim belt, which makes absolutely no sense at all whatsoever. And when he wins, then what? He's still not going to fight the champion. The champion's going to fight somebody else. So like this particular situation is making this interim situation even worse than it already is. I understand the reasoning for it, but I would really try our best. If it were me, I would try my best to get away from it and I would rather say that somebody's the number one contender rather than they're the interim champion.
Yeah, to be honest, I kind of changed my opinion based on, and I'm a little bit hypocritical when it comes to interim titles. So I kind of base my opinion on them dependent on who has them at the time. So like, I'll give you an example as you have. Like Tom Aspinall, good. Dustin Poirier, very bad. I think like the Cyril Gane thing was the example of like a really dumb one. You know when Francis said defended the belt like 3 or 4 months before and then they fought 3 or 4 months after?
Mm-hmm.
It was unnecessary. It was stupid. They ended up fighting very closely after that. It wasn't really necessary. They could have just made it a fight and then had a call out and handled it that way.
Yeah.
I do think that if they are going to persist with interim titles, there's 2 things they basically have to do. Either they do what boxing did, and I can't believe I'm going to take a page from boxing, but I would scrap the interim title completely and just change the term to mandatory. Yeah. So that the title holder has to defend against that person when they return. So you basically have a mandatory title, kind of like just you call it that fight. The fight is for the mandatory challenger.
Mm-hmm.
And then the title holder is stripped if they refuse to fight whoever holds that mandatory title, as opposed to I don't know, maybe the wording of it would just change that. It hasn't helped that much in boxing, but there have been some positive things for it. Mm-hmm. And I've kind of been inspired by the recent John Jones and Tom Aspinall situation. If they're going to go down the interim champion route, and then that interim champion defends that belt before the champion returns, then the champion should be automatically stripped and the current interim title holder should be made the champion, and then the former champion should be made the interim champion until they return.
That's not.
And if they aren't prepared to do that, I mean, this is kind of a unique circumstance we're looking at with the Tom and Jones situation. And obviously what makes that more ridiculous than it already is because not only is Tom fighting somebody else, it also looks like the UFC are trying to get him to line up to fight a fighter from a different division if he does get through that. Because I don't know what your opinion on this is, but it kind of feels like Alex Pereira is kind of a little bit... He's being considered as potentially somebody that John Jones could fight above even Tom Aspinall.
Now think about that. That does not make sense.
True. Yep.
Who's defending his interim belt. It seems that the narrative's going in that direction. I think if they're not prepared to do either of those things, they should just scrap them because they've already proven in recent times that these titles mean fuck all. So get rid of him, I guess would be my... Is either go in those two directions or just like fuck the idea off completely because they've lost all credibility at this point.
Yeah, I feel like they just don't... The same way it is with champions who get injured or people who are in the rankings for forever, you know, i.e. Michael Chandler. Like there has to be some sort of hard and fast rule on how long they are able to retain whatever space it is that they have, whether that's their ranking, whether it's their belt. If they you can't sit and squat on a particular spot and hold on to it and think that that's yours without any activity. It just, the sport has to keep on moving, and they're allowing people to stall the sport out. In this case, you know, John Jones, who before that gave no idea that he was going to be an active champion, even though, you know, I mean, and GSP had already proven when a fighter was on the shelf and came back and fought for a belt in another weight class, that more than likely they're not going to stick around and defend that belt. And GSP, being who he is, he immediately dropped the belt. And that's what John really should have done, to be honest.
I mean, it all comes down to terrible booking from the UFC to begin with. I mean, John Jones should have never just been automatically given a title fight, and we know that kind of only happened because of the whole situation surrounding Ngannou. They wanted to make it seem like there was a legitimate champion because obviously they were looking like they were going to have Garn as champion, and then obviously Francis had already beaten him and then left.
Yeah.
So they essentially made this fight just to kind of reestablish some kind of order in the division, which I do get. But it's very risky putting a title on a guy who's fought once in however many years it had been up until that point. Yeah. And it's so... As I feel like this has become less about the interim titles and just we're getting back to a John Jones spit roast at this point.
Well, I mean, the thing about it is...
Which is kind of where all this anger's coming from.
And it makes sense. Like, the heavyweight division has had the most interim champions by far.
Bad bitch.
Like, it's not even close. I think they've had 7 interim champions in their lineage. So they are the glamour division for interim champions. So it's kind of, it makes sense for us to be talking about them. You know, like one of the best title fights that I've seen in recent memory was an interim belt fight. And that was Israel Adesanya against Kelvin Gastelum. Kelvin Gastelum will never get back there again. He can't even make weight for whatever weight class he's supposed to be in. But that was one of the best fights that I saw for a belt, even if it was a paper belt. But that being said, if that fight would have been for the number one contender ship to fight Robert Whittaker, I've been fine with it. I would have had no issues with it.
And there was no need for it to, because I don't think Robert Whittaker had been out that long as well. It was just a case of Adesanya was supposed to fight Whittaker. Whittaker was injured. They're like, oh shit, we don't have a title fight on an event. But I don't think it would take away from that. I think the reason why they do it is to have that moment where they obviously put a belt around somebody's waist, and it seems they want that shot at the end of the night. You know, where it's like, we've got a new champion kind of thing, or we've got some, like, rather than, but they could, I don't know, they could, I think just even adding the word, because interim just seems it's a flimsy expression from the start. They could do the wording differently, so that it seems a lot more definitive.
Yeah.
Because even the word interim, it just means temporary.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the problem's coming from, because it's like you just know that it's going to get taken away or diminished at some point.
I mean, it's even diminished in the title.
It seems pointless now. I'm surprised.
The title is diminished, though. Like, another thing that they need to do is change the belt. Like, that belt looks identical to the champion's belt. Change the belt. Like, make the belt something different. Something different.
That's not a bad idea.
Because it's not the same. It's not the
Maybe
same.
make it like shit colored. They might as well at this point.
Something, because, well, they
Just
can't
make
use
it
silver.
like a brownie kind of.
Yeah, they can't use silver because...
Make it bronze. Fuck it.
Yeah, something that's definitive to show that
bronzy, shitty colored.
that is the runner-up belt for now. Like, I don't, even though, and I think that Dustin Poirier would agree with this. He knows that the belt that he has in his house is not the top of the top. That's an interim.
And Justin Gaethje felt the same way.
He just
when
threw
he
it down.
basically threw it down.
I'm here with the winner and new interim champion, Justin Gaethje. Do you not want that on you? Why'd you just throw that off?
Wait for the real one.
Like Tony, that's not the real belt that he has, and he knows that. Yair, that actually bothered me when Yair, got all the colors on it. That actually kind of bothered me a little bit. So I'm like, well, you doing all that? That's not even the real belt. But have your fun.
They definitely need to do something, or at least make the rules clear about what they're going to do with it.
Yeah.
Like, if somebody's interim champion, it means that the champion has to fight them.
Yeah.